All
All
right.
right. Sorry about that. I see some people in the chat already. I was full disclosure. I was like legitimately napping, and yes, I realized that I look Wilson on a deserted island. I have showered. I am clean, but yeah, I could have probably fixed the hair and beard
I
up prior to going live. But
I
here we
took a
are.
late nap myself, so this is good.
I think what happens is, and I heard this years ago, but unfortunately, it's like developers and engineers when they're looking for a job, tend to perhaps not yeah, that is when we dress up, but unfortunately during the job when you're actually busy, you end up
Okay.
letting your haircut go
Yeah,
and like all that stuff.
yeah.
And I feel like honestly, hey folks, I'm fine, I'm just a little bit busy at the moment. There's a lot going on. So
Uh,
specifically,
I've heard that same story
have you
for folks after they, after they get the girlfriend slash boyfriend slash significant other slash whatever. Oh well, I no longer need to go, get myself all prettied up for a date.
yourself go? Ah, I will say though that listen, I'm busy on a couple things that are coming up. One of them is NVIDIA GTC next week. I realize, Matt, you may not be there, but if anyone else is there,
I will
I'd
not be
love
there.
to meet and talk. I've only got like a 15-minute thing there. It's really not that long.
Okay.
It's really pretty easy, but I would like to talk to people about the pulse of what they think is
Yeah.
going on, what they're excited about, that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
to that end, I think I watched a video recently that I'd love to talk about. I don't know if you've
Yeah.
seen any of it or like it there, but and have you did you watch any? Should
I
we
have
introduce
watched
it?
the first 18 minutes
Oh, okay.
and
You watched a fair amount. Okay, okay.
and I totally agree with everything he said so far. You are kind of indicating that maybe he changes gears to go psycho instead.
No, so to set the stage, it's Brian
Huh.
Cantrell, and in terms of going psycho, but Brian likes to he's very enthusiastic about things with which he is interested. We'll say before he goes on stage. So in this case, it's at Monktoberfest. I think it may have actually been either last year or the year before. So this might be a little bit older. Maybe
Mhm.
it's last year, like last fall, that kind of stuff. That being said, there's neither here nor there. So Brian wants to talk to you about firmware. Let's put that out of the way. So Brian works for Oxide. Oxide is trying to reinvent the rack and hardware and stuff like that. That involves inside of it. So to set the stage, the reason I say this is that the software that they're creating for these devices is critical. And specifically, a lot of the rigor with which he's talking about the code involves more software engineering, I guess, instead of software developer. So in terms of like, hey, could someone get hurt by this software? Is sort of the to set the stage. This is serious matter. Or you could think the same thing about finance or maybe even healthcare to be more like to keep it real. And its primary argument is that you can't just code with vibes and expect a good result from it. And maybe I misunderstood that, so I apologize. But that seems to be the primary tenet is you can't just ask an AI assistant to write your firmware for you and blindly
Right.
trust the firmware that is created, which I
Right.
think is a rational argument.
Yeah.
I think there's life involved. There may be a certain amount of rigor that you
Mhm.
want, and that the tools that we have today aren't there yet, and may never be there yet. He's not saying that they can't. They could. That's fine. The main argument is that you have to test your code quality in order to make sure it's viable before it hits a human. And I'm not saying hit here. I'm not trying to make a pun, but like if your self-driving car hits a human based on your code, like that's not it's not the car's fault. This is
Right.
you've made the code, you've released it, you've put it in the world, and I'm not again, I'm not trying to single anyone out here, but like in terms of
Mhm.
repercussions for the code that you've put out there, he's saying we need to be a little bit more how do I say this? Just careful. I guess is the main thing. Now, where I
Yeah.
think you may have missed it, and perhaps I was reading between the lines a little bit, and I've seen the end, so it's so before we jump into this, I want to first say this is always great, like safe harbor statement. We're about to go into
Mm.
dangerous territories here. My opinion does not recommend represent the one of the shirt that I'm wearing, so the company I work for.
Mhm.
Also, I'm Canadian, so in terms of U.S. politics, please don't drag me into this. This is pretty light. I promise it doesn't get that far, but I think his main thing that he's talking about, and he mentions it in passing in the intro, is his disillusionment with the group of, and I'm gonna get this wrong, so I gotta look it up, but it's E/AC. So I think it's enhancement and acceleration, I believe, is what it's for. Effective accelerationism. I was way off, so I'm glad I looked it up. Um, effective accelerationism, as he described it, is probably not fair to this group. So I'll try, because I don't know anything about this group either. But it's a political belief. Again, my understanding is that technology can propel our society forward. I think is at the base of what they believe in. Uh, what, but I think what he's really angry with is that Mark Andreessen said something that he likes. Honestly, just as an aside, I feel like he just doesn't get along with Andreessen. And listen, I'm not going to say I agree with him there. I've seen quite a bit of Andreessen stuff. I'm not going to say I agree with all of it, but just blindly saying I don't agree with any of it, I think would be a disservice to Andreessen. So that's what he's saying. He's saying, like, listen, even though this is handy, and even though it can produce code that you can test and make good stuff, unfortunately, like, what we can't do is start diving into this sort of reductive argumentation about when AI will get access to the nuclear codes and take over the world, for example. Um, in particular, he didn't mention, but in particular, I think there's some, like, sort of some floppies flying around with the codes on them, for example, in the nuclear program. And there's some, like, laughter and stuff like that in the tech community about this. But when we're thinking about systems that we need to secure, sometimes actually separating physically, like, your keys from, like, what, anyway, like, I can understand why they're saying it's bad. Anyway, he goes off into another tangent here about nuclear codes and the end of the world and things like that. But again, okay, so we talked about key one, which is, like, listen, I think we're trying to create serious code. Because of that, we need to be serious when we're creating. Got it. Number two, he's saying, you think the Twitterverse, which is how this whole talk started, to think that the world is going to end because of AI. And one, I don't think that. So number two, this will not create the end of the world. Number three, however, is it's really dangerous. Yes, and perhaps not to the nuclear level, but because it's really dangerous, we need to look at this with a rational mind and approach the problem rationally. I think you and I could probably agree with all of those parts,
Uh,
including the
uh,
little politic kind of, like, I'm trying to think of the party that he doesn't like, but he's basically saying, like, it's not Republican or Democrat. It's more splinter off to the side. But basically, he's
I,
saying the people who think
I,
technology is going to fix politics and everything,
right.
I don't agree with. Okay.
So I thought that what he was saying at the beginning, where he brings up the tweet about somebody saying we should just pause from AI because it's going to lead us to somewhere crazy. I thought he had the what I think is a sensible point of view of saying, no, that's just ridiculous.
But for the wrong reason. So, one, I think he's saying that, yes, having policies in place, super important. Let's do that. Like, there's probably somebody on it. Let's definitely have a policy. Yes. However, the knee-jerk, sorry, reactionism about saying, like, hey, this is, like, immediately jump to the snowball effect. We're just going
Right.
to destroy the earth, like straight up. Someone's going to type in some sort of prompt that's going to give them a recipe, and then it's game over, kind of thing. He's saying that that is not the case. In fact, it's harmful to think about these things that way. However, if there was a way to pause and create policies and things like that and do things rationally, I think he's saying that this is not necessarily a bad thing. He's basically saying, like, I
So I haven't
understand the
gotten to that
sentiment
part
here.
then.
Okay, yeah, he's saying, like, I understand the
Okay.
sentiment here. However,
Okay.
in practicality, what you're asking for is it's like it's impossible, or next to impossible. It's
Yeah.
impossible adjacent. It's not going to be
Right.
easy. And as a result, maybe what you should think of is why you want to do what you want to do and what we can do instead. And maybe instead of complaining about the problem in irrational terms, perhaps you could attach rational terms to it. To wit, uh, you shouldn't develop firmware with Gen AI at all, at all. Like don't touch it at all. And I think that's where I may disagree, actually. And some of the things about software quality that was mentioned and the amount of human time involved and the toil specifically were perfect examples where I feel like, nah, this is probably pretty good for you, especially around like fuzzing and stuff like that, where like a lot of hours are
Mhm.
involved. And some of the bugs that he was talking about as well. In fact, I feel like some of the conclusions and things like that he's saying, like, hey, it's like there's no way that another human would not be able to help me come up with this suggestion. I'm not sure if you get to the problem area. We're talking about
Mhm.
Chelsea.io, I think is the or Chelsea.io, but it's Chelsea.io, I believe is the nick. But it's been around for ages, like 20 years,
Mhm.
25, possibly 30, 40, like a really long time with the same firmware. Unfortunately, like the dirty secret here is that firmware tends to stay around for like a
All
long
right.
time.
Right.
Like 5 years is easy, 10 is not unheard of, 20, 30 is, yeah. It just we just build on top of firmware and keep
Right.
going because getting there, you assume that you're like building on a foundation. Lo and behold, a lot of what he gave as examples were bugs that have existed for a long time, and because they've existed, but they are new to the industry. I think incumbent is the term because they're new. Um, they may not have this shared knowledge or have hit these specific bugs. And they do have firmware engineers on the team who have been in the industry for a while, but these are like old code bases kind of thing. So I mean, listen, he's so close, so close. Just finding like the right nuance. But I think that the main thing that he did for me was one, I watched it, and I do care about firmware, and I do really like Brian, and typically agree. And in this case, I probably do agree and just feel like he hasn't come around to like where I am. But anyway, I've been
Mm.
ranting for a bit there, but the main thing is pretty much right after, I think maybe 20 minutes and just after where you started watching, he
Okay.
starts talking about 3 or 4 failures about firmware.
Mm.
And then the conclusion is, and to remind you, we'll bring up Andreessen and the EAC people again and let you know that, hey, this is kind of BS. And just because there's a study doesn't mean you can trust the study. And we talk about, I think he mentioned science for profit, or maybe I watched the next one after that. That was,
Mm.
um,
Mm.
but but basically blindly trusting a piece of code that we don't necessarily understand the
Sure.
functioning of, that we're going to be using in production in something that's really serious, needs to be tested properly, I think is a fantastic point. I think
Mhm.
it should behoove you is my new favorite word. You should it therefore it should make you want to write more tests and fuzz
Right.
more. And I feel like Gen AI can really help in that area of software quality.
Yep.
And maybe this is a strong opinion loosely held, but like at least in my experience, I've learned a lot more about how bad I am at coding and like
Sure.
how I will miss like corner cases a lot. Actually, I'm really bad at writing test code, and I thought I was pretty good at testing software, but I feel like I'm maybe better at performance testing software the more I like go through the sort of collaborative workflow. Like, hey,
Right.
if I were using Tab9 while I'm coding, what would that look like? Or GitHub Copilot, or maybe I'm using Amazon. I think it's Code Whisperer that I want to try next. I still don't
Mhm.
have yet access to Cloud 3 in Canada, but Gemini as well I've been testing. And I think we've been talking about this a while. So in terms of the way that we go through and test things, it's not that I'm at least YOLOing things into prod and hoping it doesn't hurt somebody, but I do feel like what it's really good at, and Tab 9 was a bit of an eye opener. I was like, hey, just make this easy for me. Don't make me think. Like what would the
Mhm.
easy button look like for this type of AI assisted? Anyway, long rant. I thought it was a great video. I feel like anybody should watch this Cantrell at Monktoberfest talk. And again, I feel like he doesn't necessarily represent his full opinion, though I do agree that when it
Right.
comes to firmware writing, that some sort of rigor is more important than it would be otherwise.
Yeah. So I hadn't gotten far enough in, but I was generally agreeing with all of the things that I thought he was saying.
Yeah.
Um, and like the idea of giving I you giving the system, a question and getting back and just trusting it is always
Yes.
bad. Whether that system is,
That system could be Matt.
ChatGPT or a local Llama 2 or
Yeah,
Stack
the Matt Williams.
Overflow
Yeah,
or,
we've been wrong on the stream, right?
yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
As far what was it we were wrong about? Glover being
yeah. Donald and
yeah.
Danny Glover, who are probably the
How
same
could they not
person.
be related? They got the last name, same last name.
So dumb.
But no, I mean,
Okay.
anytime you ask something, ask an object, ask some system for
Right.
an answer, you're going to get back an answer, and you gotta. It's your job to verify that it's a good answer, and you can't just
Right.
trust it.
Yeah, so it's like trust but verify, I guess is what
And he
you're
was
kind of
talking
getting at,
about
right?
building the racks, and building that rack was not just coming up with an idea and then building it, but coming up with an idea. There might have been some accidents where blood was spilled because
Rocks
and
will
just
fall over.
yeah,
Like
racks fall
straight up,
over.
rocks will fall over.
And it's going to take a lot of iteration. And every time I work with any of the AI assistants, whether it's ChatGPT or something local, you ask a question, you get an answer back, you test it, you realize, well, that's stupid. It's errors out because of these 15 errors that happen. Fix these errors. Okay, great. So we one error down, two errors down. We continue to build, and until we finally get a system that is sort of doing what we originally asked for, not necessarily what we actually wanted. And so it's
Yeah.
all down to you asking the right questions for what do you really need versus what do you think you need,
Definitely.
and coming up with the. I mean, we're still a long way from the AI solution kind of asking the right questions. Well, what is it you really want versus what are you
Yeah.
asking me?
Yeah, that's a really good point because right now the sort of assistant mode is to assume, well, not assume, but it seems to assume that you're valid in asking the question in
Mhm.
the first part, and that
Right.
that it should answer you. It's like, actually,
Yeah.
Matt, that's not the question you should be asking. DevOps is larger than, like where is this
Yeah.
nuanced approach
Yeah.
that I would get in the hallway track kind of thing is like, actually the real question is, that kind of thing.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that could be it too. I mean, listen, they're running firmware in Rust, and perhaps a model that they tried didn't necessarily fit the bill, and may have in fact wasted more time than it was good, as opposed to saying, "Hey, I'm building a new rack and firmware, and we're halfway through it in Rust. Are there any other like, you know what I mean? That sort of like
Right.
guided
Right.
kind of approach." And I'm listen, I'm not recommending that I go out and use Gen AI at all, and I follow the company very closely. And in fact, I believe a lot in what they do, which is how we got here because I want to watch the video. I just feel like they, when we get stuck in hyperbole and there's like those wide statements, I think is where we get into trouble. Like this will never help me. I think it's hard to say, or like
Right. Oh,
this
yeah.
is
Yeah.
only a human problem, which seems really weird to say, but like I'm not sure if it's true for what he's talking about for some of those things. But yeah, for designing the rack right now, like I don't know how far out that is, but there's a fair amount of work in SolidWorks to just get like two pieces of metal to stick together, and that's very difficult for me. I don't know about
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah. I mean, there are plenty of people that seem to think that AGI is here or AGI is even a year away.
Right.
Well, it's decades. But I mean, assuming that things are continuing to accelerate and we're on this kind of hockey stick and they're accelerating and it's going to keep going on, accelerating more and more, get that hockey stick more and more vertical. I feel like we're like decades away from whatever AGI is. And of course, our definition of AGI keeps changing of what is AGI. And what's the impact of that? Is it yeah, as his daughter said, well, the computers don't have arms. Well, sometimes they do, but generally, yeah. I mean, that was a great comment from, I think it was his daughter.
What I really like about, so his first off, what did you think of his slides?
Um, I wasn't paying attention to his slides.
Excellent. Good, perfect answer, because they were terrible and looking at them would be pointless because there were just, I think, like 5 or 6 long lines per slide. Like, they were really
Yeah.
bad
Okay.
slides.
Okay. I did see one slide. I thought
They're
it
all
was
like that.
something else. I didn't realize it was a
Yeah.
slide. Okay.
They're all like that. But what's funny is that, and he does this for a lot of his talks. You can tell I've seen a few of them, but this is recently, this seems to be the new thing. But what he's doing is he'll put up the slide and walk away from it to the center of the stage so he can flail his arms about it and talk about it. And then when he's done, he'll walk back and next slide. And I'll like, oh yeah, that thing. Let's rant about this a little bit. Really, it's like a rant bullet list because he doesn't have
Yeah.
notes. Like, oh yeah, where was it in this rant? Like, oh yeah, and then it's fantastic. It's like,
Yeah.
and then Mark Andreessen said, it's not that bad. Sent a tweet and a little bit on that EAC stuff, though, because I don't want to be, I don't wanna represent myself as a supporter of this because I vehemently disagree that, like, just to spell it out, they think that something like technology or AGI will harm poverty or like these widespreading kind of human problems. And listen, I'm not saying that AI or AGI can't help here, but I don't think that inherently AGI is going to solve this problem on its own. Anyway, read the wiki page.
So,
EAC is a whole thing.
I mean, is EAC saying that technology is good and we should keep moving forward, or are they more like Luddites and want it to all stop?
Keep
I
moving
couldn't.
forward. So yeah,
Keep
so I'll
moving
read the
forward.
first
Okay.
sentence. Yeah, so effective accelerationism, often abbreviated as EAC, is a 21st century, so pretty new, philosophical movement that advocates for explicitly pro technology stance.
Okay.
So like, not at all costs, but like pro tech. And
Okay.
then the next
Okay.
one is like, yeah, can solve human problems like poverty, war, and climate change, that kind of stuff.
That he mentioned that right at the beginning of the talk, and at the beginning of
And
the
then
talk,
right at the
I
end,
was
yeah.
just realizing, oh no, we can't do this walk along the beach at Fay Bainbridge Park because I got to get home to do the stream in 20 minutes.
For my
We better
co-host
go.
who's napping.
Yeah,
Sorry about that.
yeah, because you didn't hear from me at 10:30 whenever you posted, "Hey, are we doing this?"
Yeah, he was in the bar like, no, I was gonna take a nap anyway. I'm getting old, man. I need a nap in the middle of the day. But like, I didn't know this group existed, and I feel bad. Like, I don't want to detract against a political group, so I paused the video. I was like, hey, what's he talking about? I was like, no, actually, moving on. I'm on pause, and I watched the rest of the video. But I paused right there because I was like, hey, this is a new
Okay.
term. What's going on? And it's like, it's been a minute since I've heard someone say like it's rare for me to agree with Mark Andreessen. I was like, oh no, what is going on? But it was a really good talk. Again, if you're just
Wow.
joining, so this is Brian Cantrell at Monktoberfest. I think it was last year, talking about AI, and I think that the title is "Intelligence Isn't in It." I think is that the right title? Intelligence isn't in it. It basically saying that AI as regard
Intelligence is not
AI
enough.
is not enough. Intelligence is not enough. It is not like the be all end all for software development. It's not going to kill this industry, and specifically, it's not going to really help just yet in firmware development. Which, like,
Yeah.
listen, I can agree with most of this
Yeah.
stuff. What I really wanted at the end was like the CTA should be, instead of like blindly trusting this model, is either like help it so that your
Yeah.
fellow developers aren't having like a bad time, or maybe like I think what he's saying is that this sort of what are they called? Doomers, I think? Not boomer,
Mhm.
but doomer? I think, yeah. So when you
Boomers,
hear
yeah.
doomers online, they're like figure out a way to engage with these people because they could have previously been your friends, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which is also, I feel pretty mature. It was just unfortunately kind of missing, and specifically missing from like the early part. So the earlier part of the talk is like get you up in a rolling boil. Monktoberfest is going to have, I mean, Stephen O'Grady, there's going to be investors there. There's going to be market research people there. There's going to be sort of the who's like going out and researching what's happening in the industry at the moment. And there's like a lot happening at the moment. So I'm sure they ate it up.
Yeah.
That's
Mm.
my rant. Good content. Go watch it.
Yeah. Yeah.
What else is up? I've obviously been watching a lot of YouTube. This is the best I found.
Yeah, I've watched a lot of YouTube too, but I didn't watch anything like that.
You
Um,
don't have a subscription for Brian Cantrell mentions on YouTube?
no, maybe I should.
I don't, but YouTube definitely knows. And there's a new talk. I should watch it.
Yeah. Um,
Anything else going on that we should know about?
no.
I saw a video something
Um,
about Olama. Have you heard of this? Windows,
yeah.
Linux,
What's up
and
with?
Mac support.
Do you see the number? There's 30 people watching this. How is
They
it
want to
that
know. They want
Dale
to know about
and
Olama for
Nate
Windows.
and
I'm telling you.
your mother has logged in 28 times?
I mean, it's possible. There's also my significant other who could be logged in like 3 times. She's got
Okay,
at least 2
27 times.
devices. 27 times. So as mentioned, I do follow the Olama commits. In fact, every PR that's opened in issues and stuff, there's a lot of it. I watch them all. I watch Ooga Booga and a couple others as well. But
Really?
Olama it's
I'm impressed.
already pretty popular. It
impressed.
seems to be heating up quite a bit. So
Yeah.
that's why I asked. I saw a couple of your videos come out as well on this
Yeah.
topic, which I thought were pretty interesting. But you seem to also be getting quite a bit of traffic on the YouTube videos. And congrats.
I am. It's a
Yeah.
lot of fun. It's amazing. You know, when
Does it feel good to be
Alama and
relevant?
I kind of separated ways back in January, and I focused on the YouTube channel. It I was hoping that it would kick off, take you know get some views, but it's definitely it's amazing. It's amazing, and but it's also amazing seeing you know how some videos that you think are going to be really great
Oh yeah.
just fall flat, and then others are okay. This is going to be okay, but then goes you know super popular. So the last one I did was just about installing, and I thought, okay, it's not going to be super popular, but it's going to have you know a decent number of views. Almost, I mean, it's if I had looked at the numbers back in November when you know I hardly got anything, I'd be like, oh my god, this is just so amazing. But for today, for now, it's kind of it is the worst performing video that I've done in like since January. Um, like 1,000 views in a week or almost a week.
Oh,
And then
that's
yesterday's one is now that I posted at 11 p.m. last
to
night
build it up.
because I finally finished it. It's not like it's not the most popular, but it's at I think it's like at 5,000 views so far, which is amazing.
4.7. I
Amazing.
don't want to keep you honest or anything. 4.7 is pretty.
Yeah.
I am subscribed to your
And
channel. I don't think I have the
the-
notification though. Do I really need to click this thing?
That's one thing that's you'd think Google, you know, the company that owns YouTube, Google, they know about data, they know about how to update things, how to update, have you know, if there's a value, then show that same value in lots of places.
Right.
You look at YouTube Studio to figure out how your video is doing.
Those are different
you look
numbers.
at-
Yeah.
Yeah, every single page is like different number by sometimes off by like 20% off.
I was gonna say
Um,
plus or minus 10%, but yeah, 20% is a lot.
for like one page shows 4,000, another page shows 5,000. And so and they're
Your numbers are
always
larger than
off.
mine, but mine are like, is it 4 views or 5 views? I can't tell.
So yeah, the one I posted yesterday is fun because it was just about how do I find the video that mentions something, whatever concept. And so let's use embedding, which was introduced in Olama. So we've always been able to do embeddings before, but you had to use either Hugging Face library or ChatGPT or
Right.
sorry, OpenAI or something else to do that embedding. You could kind of do it with Olama, but it sucked. And now it's no longer as bad.
I didn't know that. I should watch the video.
Yeah. David Pacman. Oh, is that the nutcase with the Starfleet uniform who's like always just makes up garbage? Is that who? There's this YouTuber that he gets like so many views on every one of his videos, and it's total BS every single time.
I'm Googling this because that sounds amazing.
I don't know how this guy gets views. He just like, let me just make up a whole bunch of stuff that has no basis in fact. And let me call myself an AI researcher, even though I have no qualifications, and just make up garbage. And he gets amazing number of views.
So
And
two
he
things.
wears his Starfleet uniform.
I think Nate may be talking about someone who does have a political YouTube channel.
Okay,
Second thing is
not the same guy. Okay,
no, but in the interview that
there's a
Nate's
David
talking about,
something.
is they did interview a Doomer, which is Daniel Dennett.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And they were saying not the guy. Sorry, yeah. So when I looked up the Backman, I was like, I don't know if that's what you mean.
Yeah.
But all this to say,
There's another one.
It's an election year in the U.S. and like for all of us who are not in the U.S., because I'm pretty sure we determined Nate's in Sydney, we have to be very careful about having opinions around this time of year because people are very heated. They want to have arguments. Yes. It's like I'm not here for that. So like, can you take my commentary, please?
Yeah.
Without the argument. So I apologize for being wishy-washy on politics, but like, listen, you got to be safe. Like, you don't want to like align with anything publicly or anything like that. It's really, at least not in the public eye. And listen, I get opinions, but you're not gonna hear them.
We have a nutcase and an old guy. We have a nutcase and an old guy running, and that could mean that could be either way.
I get nothing.
One side thinks it's a nutcase versus an old guy, and the other side thinks that.
But it looks like EAC is way off in left field.
Yeah.
So there's probably lobbies and stuff like that talking about trying to lobby tech more in the government, and it totally makes sense. I will say a couple things here. So one, your thumbnail game seems to be getting stronger. And in fact, when I look at the ones that do really well, I feel like the thumbnails are better. Just take it or leave it. And the ones that I'm interested in are the ones that are not doing very well, which is also kind of interesting, right? So I wonder if it's more like, we talk about it like the 0-50 course or the 100 course or 200 course. I feel like I'm probably at the 100 or 200 level now in terms of my journey. And perhaps some people are looking for your advanced content, which I do see is doing really well, or your beginner content, which I see is really well.
Yeah, Ryan, you sound a little muffled from Nate. Not as bad as last time,
but I can turn it up.
But definitely still a little bit muffly.
It's probably the beard. It's getting in the way.
That's it. The most recent one is one of the first in quite a while that actually does some coding. And so a little bit more advanced, not super advanced, but and the thumbnails is definitely an interesting one. Like, how do you represent? One thing I've often heard, like for recommendations for thumbnails, is you want to be, have one simple concept on the screen, not multiple things. Like the example that often gets brought up is Mr. Beast with like 6 Lamborghinis versus just 1 Lamborghini. Like, okay, well, I'm not going to have Lamborghinis on my thumbnail, but I get the idea.
Matt, you just need Lambos. I mean, come on. It's so easy.
I'll just go across the street to take a picture of his.
Hey, can I borrow your car real quick?
Yeah.
It's for YouTube. It's fine. Yeah, I've got insurance.
So keep it simple, bright colors. And I've definitely been doing more of those bright colors. The don't try to be tricky or smart or with the thumbnail. So if it's at first I was thinking this video about embedding, well, it'd be like an embedded reporter. It's like, that's a little too like
that's too intelligent,
tricky, or because like how do you visualize embedding? And I ended
going
up
to bed, isn't that what embedding means? It's like
see, that's a version I mean
it is. It like, yes, no one ever uses it this way, but yes, the bed and embedding is in fact, I believe, like a bed of sand or a bed of something.
Okay. And so what I ended up doing is you it's kind of hard to see the background because I've got a bunch of text on it, and there's it's kind of subdued as it's taken a lot of the saturation out, but it's a llama in a video store.
I didn't even know that. It's on a Blockbuster.
And because I'm looking for videos in the video, and so, but but
I
yeah,
don't
it's
think it
not
matters at this
really.
point. It good enough hits like when
I,
you launch it that it doesn't actually matter. Like honestly. So sometimes the thumbnail does matter like for the
yeah,
long life of the video.
yeah,
I think it's actually important. But it doesn't matter. I say all this having do you know Casey Neistat? I mean not
I've
personally,
heard
but
of him.
do you
Yeah,
know of Casey Neistat? Okay. I'm
yeah,
not a
yeah.
fan of Casey's
He's
content.
coming over for
Again,
dinner tonight.
yeah, okay. Just before I insult Casey Neistat publicly, not a fan of
Uh,
his content, but I've watched it, and honestly,
right.
is very interesting. So even though I might not like his content, I find
Hmm.
the way that he produces it is very interesting. And yeah, one of the things he
Yeah,
does really well is thumbnails somehow.
yeah.
Like a long time ago, I think a lot of people are following suit because they want to get a little bit of
Right.
Casey's success, but randomly because I think I'm very interested in this is another Americanism for me anyway. It's like the narrative. Americans are obsessed with narrative. And like, look, can you just call it storytelling for a sec here? It doesn't need to be insidious. You don't need to have some like goal of like, haha, I'm gonna make Matt think something else. But like a story, having a story and
Yeah.
talking about it. And one of the things in Cantrell's talk that I liked is that there were a bunch of little stories in there. So one was on
Mm.
the internet having an argument. The other
Hmm.
one's like some of the fixes that they had to do for Nick, and then the rack, and et cetera, et cetera. But what I didn't know, and I should have known, is that Casey actually approaches everything as a 3-part story or
Yeah.
a 3-part arc, I think is what it's called, like the
Right. Yeah.
traditional storytelling. And once he mentioned this in an interview, which again I'll try to link here in the chat or at least tell you about, but I thought was phenomenal just to sort of think about the way he works. And a lot of what he said is that, so that was a big aha moment for me. I'm pretty sure everybody knows. The other is that he edits linearly. And what I mean is
Mm.
he will go from left to right in his video. And when he's done, he's pretty much done. And I am
Yeah.
not that person. He said, I might go back and finesse a little bit, but like most of the time, I'll spend 30 minutes editing a video, no special effects, no color grading, no editing, none of that. I'll go from start to finish and I'm done. And it's pretty
Yeah.
well chronological order, like start to
Yeah.
end. I may end up in different like stops or spaces when I do the footage, but it's all part of this linear thing. And
Yeah.
I was like, wow, that is amazing. And the reason is
Yeah.
he just doesn't want to futz with it. He just wants to get in there,
Yeah.
get it done, get out, on to the next. And I was like, yeah, it's a
Right.
pretty good workflow. I just don't have time. I just don't have time.
Yeah.
When I'm editing, I'm thinking about that story. So where is
Right.
if there's a hero story, where does the hero start? What is the play for
Mhm.
the thing that they got to get over the hurdle? And then like what is the payoff at the end kind of thing. And I
Yep.
just thought so simplistic, such an easy approach to something that I really don't like doing. I hate editing videos. And I know
he
you're really
is
good at it, but
he
he's
has
really good
had
at editing videos.
he's had so much experience. I mean,
Yeah.
that is what comes after doing this stuff for 20, 30
Yeah.
years. I
Day
mean,
in, day out.
he was
Yeah.
he was already pretty good when he had, way before YouTube, and he had his HBO series.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's it's amazing what you can do when you know what you're doing.
But he said he had shot
And
like
the fact that he's
gobs of
thinking about
DV.
it all the time,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah. It really helps.
yeah.
But that's true. Like I didn't know about the HBO series. My apologies. But he did talk
Mm,
about the DV footage that he had. He had a ton
yeah,
of DV footage
yeah.
prior to YouTube
He had
even
a whole
being a thing.
season or two of on HBO.
Oh, that is amazing.
A whole, I don't know if I've watched any of it, but that's
Uh,
before, like the first of his YouTube things was the uh trying to ride a bicycle and not hit a police car because the police cars were in the parked on the bicycle path,
that may have
and
been the
that was
first one
like
that I've
his,
ever seen.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
the
It was.
snowboarding through the city.
I haven't seen that one, but there
Um,
was like a bylaw. I think is what he was talking about in the other. Yeah, anyway,
yeah,
just ropes you in. Like I don't care
yeah,
about New York traffic. How did
yeah,
you get me, Casey? And that's just it. You find yourself just like,
yeah,
and what he said is that and maybe this is the third thing that I took away of it is the pacing is very important to him. So it's not laugh a minute, but he wants to retain your attention the entire time, and he's very
yeah,
conscious of it. He's like, I can't just give you the answer. I get it. Like
yeah.
Matt, I heard about this cool video you released. Let's talk about it next week, kind of thing. Is a technique he'd use, and I'd be like, no,
Yeah,
no, let's talk about it now. And then you're just longing
yeah,
for the why coming.
yeah,
But if that ride, if you're bearing the lead, that ride that you're taking people on better be good. And that's what he said. It's
yeah,
like, listen, I got to respect your time as a viewer. I need to respect you. If
yep,
I'm you watching this video. I don't have time. And he swears a lot. Like, I don't have effing
Yeah.
time for this. Why the F would I sit here and watch your effing video? It's like, oh yeah. Just seeing the real person and trying to think of
Yeah.
the way that he thinks about producing his videos, I thought was super entertaining. Anyway, sorry,
Yeah.
I wasted all of our time talking about 2 YouTube videos I watched, but I thought they're really, really good. And yeah,
Yeah.
just kind of rock my world as someone who tries to create content.
There's a few really great storytellers on
Yes.
YouTube, and they really stand out as being quite amazing at what they do.
Yeah. Do you watch Chloe Abram? Have I brought that up before?
I I think that's the one. Someone I'm thinking of.
Huge if
What?
true?
Yes, former Vox.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah.
And it feels like she took the workworkflow that she had with
Yeah.
her team at
She's done
Vox
very
and
few
liquor.
videos. She hasn't done a huge number of
Done a
videos
lot of
yet
shorts.
because she
Yeah.
has just switched over from working at Vox, trying to follow in the footsteps of Johnny Harris.
Yeah. Her videos just get me every time. It's like, you
Oh
got
my
me
God.
again. It's
Yeah,
like,
they're great.
hey, so I'm
Yeah.
flying in a helicopter over the I'm making this up, over the Andes, and like,
Yeah.
but I got this thing in my pocket. It's like, what's the thing? What's the thing? We'll get wait, don't rewind. We gotta go way back. And it's like, oh, you got me. I'm in this for
Yep.
at least 30 minutes now, Chloe.
Yeah, she there's a another YouTuber who used to work at YouTube that does interviews, and one of his most recent interviews was with her. And
that's
it's
really cool.
fascinating.
Oh, I have to watch that. I know it's kind of
And
made out
all of
maybe.
his interviews are great.
Oh, are they? Okay, awesome. I
I
really
think he's done Casey Neistat as well.
Oh, fantastic. I really like when they talk about how like their little method that they haven't written down
Yeah.
that's like unconscious. It's like a subconscious
Yep.
thing that they're, and I say they, but like creators when they are
Yeah.
going through something, they've got like a subconscious
Yeah.
thing that they're trying to do, and I just love it. Like Casey said he
Yeah.
hates camera movement, and I'm not sure if Casey knows what camera movement is. And I'm being nice because like he's saying
Yeah.
like I don't need to move the camera from point A to point B all shaky like because that it's distracting. It's terrible. 5 minutes later, we're going through the video. Casey's hand holding a video while doing an interview. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's at a Dutch angle because it shows I don't care about
Right.
you, the watcher. I care about the interviewee. And I was like, that's cool. But it kind of like doesn't necessarily agree with what you just said. And I think what he means is moving the camera, like physically
Right.
moving the camera. But I'm pretty sure camera movement means when the camera's
Right.
moving, unfortunately. It encompasses both.
There's another good interview with Casey done by his channel is called something like Spaghetti something.
That's literally the one I watched.
He,
There you go. Yes.
oh,
thank you.
the founder of
Famous spaghetti or something.
Patreon.
Oh, is that who it is? Okay, the interview
Yeah.
was phenomenal.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. Is that the same
He's done
person who
another
does the
one.
music ones too? Like, because I recognized the person before.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's got another channel where he does
Yeah.
musicians and like, how did you come to
And
this
he's done
music beat?
one fairly recently with this this woman who much younger, probably 18 to 20-year-old, who traveling around the country and makes
Oh, it's
like one
Jack
video every
Conte?
month.
I didn't even recognize this
Oh.
person.
Oh,
I
yeah,
know
the
who this
interviewer,
is.
right? That guy. Yeah.
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 That is awesome.
He's
Okay.
done a lot of great videos, great interviews.
I should watch more. Yeah, I definitely have seen some of his other content as well. I don't know how I didn't. The voice is what I recognized first.
Yeah.
But he's always looked the same, so it's got nothing to do with that. Nate, I'm not ignoring you. I do see these chats. Yes, I do wear this
when
shirt
he
specifically for you.
When Nate started, I started to read the starting to feed 2 angry babies. I thought he was talking about us. I thought we were the 2 angry babies.
He's not far. Not far from the truth. Which one of us has the bottle?
He does only have one shirt.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I wear a lot of vendor t-shirts, and this is one of them.
I am also wearing the t-shirt of my employer.
Oh,
there is no
like it.
Not Patagonia, but
gotcha. You put your logo on it?
Yeah.
No logo. Recently read Naomi Klein. Sorry, let's bridge too far. Listen, I've purchased way too much recently, but I can tell you what I'm doing, and perhaps you can laugh at me. So we talked about the Mac Studio, we talked about the storage, and now of course the Windows side needs some love. So I bought one, like I was trying to be frugal. I bought one Windows workstation, 128 gigs of RAM, and New Xeon. I think we talked about this. Put one of the 3090s in it, no problem. The goal was to put multiple video cards, one system, no problem. On Amazon, the case that I had ordered decided to get here 10 days later, like when I'm going to be NVIDIA kind of thing. So I built another computer because I couldn't get them to refund it. And they're like, you just keep it. so now I've got two computers. It's just like the dumbest thing. And I thought it was so dumb that I went out and bought a 4090. So all of this to say, buying one computer involved me, instead of consolidating graphics cards, buying yet another. So I've been running Ollama on a 4090. I've actually been running a lot of LM Studio. I'm not sure if you play with that at all.
Garbage. No.
Well, I don't want to say garbage. It's certainly handy. Like I think having a GUI tool that manages models that you're downloading on a regular basis or updates and things like that is handy. I think what I hate is when we ignore the years of crusty firmware, but you're like, how do we get to this area of UX where everything's a different shade of blue and I can't read the text? Is what I really didn't like. And there's themes and stuff like that, but most of the themes aren't great because the community donated. And again, love the community. Thank you, folks. It's good to have choice. Sometimes though, it feels like when the defaults aren't rational, like if I can't follow the default lifestyle with your tool, that I'm gonna have to switch tools. And the same applies to Windows. I hate to be ragey about Windows. I know that's kind of like it's not even a hot take right at this point in time. But if I've got to go in and update the WIM package for your installer in order to load it into a custom ISO, in order to get the operating system, not only to boot and not put the boot record on like a different disk because it couldn't load the USB driver, which took a week to figure out, but also when I get into your operating system, telemetry shouldn't be turned on by default. I shouldn't need a Microsoft account. I understand why you're doing it. All these defaults, I guess I really, it took me almost a week to turn them all off, because in my mind, if I'm going to do it on one computer and then do it again on the other, that's toil.
Right.
I've definitely got to automate the entire, like from first principles. We'll start with the operating system, go up from there. So that's what I did. So if anyone wants to know about OS customization for Windows 11, which is probably the true root problem here, let me know. But yes, Dale's got a 4090 and is running Ollama as well. So you know what I'm talking about. They run pretty well. The main thing here, Matt, if ever you buy a 4090, is to make sure you get a power supply that has a proper power plug for it, not the adapter, because
it's a different power plug.
Yes, because they've literally been catching fire due to these adapters not being plugged in all the way, because they're hard plastic on hard plastic inside metal, and they're like slightly detached and they melt. And when they melt enough, they'll catch fire. And the last thing I want in my house when I go away to San Jose is for like a smoldering 4090 to be here when I come back. So I bought a new power supply. They're honestly, you can get run-of-the-mill power supply now. We'll have that little power adapter that plugs in, but sorry, the little power plug, not the adapter, because using the adapters can be fraught with peril. Not good. That is.
I don't know anything about this because I've just been using Macs.
I mean, shared memory. There's a lot you could say about shared memory. It's hard to get a 64 gigabyte graphics card these days. Yeah,
and that's the reason why Ollama was built on Mac first, because it was just easy. It was. It just works. It's easy. It's fast.
There's a lot of issues, unfortunately, in the repo, and I'll come in once in a while and at least drop an emoji on stuff. But like a lot of it, unfortunately, has devolved to tech support. So I can understand that, like, when it looks like the ergonomics of your software are bad, but actually it's the underlying hardware is hard, unfortunately, in that space to talk about. So if we're thinking about past projects they've done, for example, I just installed Docker Toolbox with Kitematic just the other day because I do still prefer it over Portainer. It's the same thing, right? Like you're primarily dealing with software. There's some hardware involved in terms of the storage and the ports, I would say, on the sorry, my brain just went a little bit nuts there.
And to fill in folks who might have heard something real quickly, Kitematic, you mentioned Kitematic.
Oh yes, sorry, that's what I was trying to explain. My apologies. Yes, go ahead.
Same two guys that started the Ollama team.
Yeah, and all this to say, it feels like they've learned from the UI that they had previously.
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
really did like the Kitematic UI, like a lot, actually.
Yeah.
I thought it rationally made sense for what I was trying
Yep.
to do with Docker at the time, or
Yep.
containers, and I feel like Olama does the same way. And again, free tool, so I feel awful, but the GUI in LM Studio feels less polished and thought out to something that I would expect from the Olama folks, the Kitematic
Right.
folks. Yes, I understand these are completely different people,
Yeah.
and I'm conflating two different things. But I feel like it's in the same when we're looking at something like Lens, for example, Git Lens, which is an editor that allows you to manage pods and things like that, compared to a Portainer, compared to a Kitematic.
Right.
I think it's obvious to me which UI is better. And I think the
Mhm.
same thing applies to LM Studio, as opposed to something like a Home Assistant, which I think has a really good UI, surprisingly enough, for a platform that's fraught with differences
Yeah.
and hardware, scary hardware.
Yeah.
It does a pretty good job. Oh yeah, and Dale knows Kitematic too. There we go.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, 4090 fan noise.
Kitematic was a tool that they made when they were still in college. They were still living in their dorm room. Jeff and Michael were roommates
No
at the
way.
time.
That's pretty darn
And
good.
they had a third founder, and it was just a school project, and then it became something big and got bought out by Docker. But apparently the earliest versions were basically using as many free resources that they could get from God, what's the name of the tool you used to be able to use to like spin up a free application, Heroku.
Yeah, let's say it sounds like
So that it was
Salesforce,
like
yeah.
a lot of managing Heroku instances until they would expire, and then spin up a new account and transfer everything over, and then keep doing that to keep the resources that Kitematic needed. So it was just this total.
The
Yeah,
problem in our
it's funny.
industry is like when we hear about a problem, we instantly think about a startup, and I was like, wow, whatever shell game this is that you're playing with
Yeah,
free
yeah.
resources sounds like an amazing company. And I was like, yeah, the morals aren't that great here. But listen, you're in college, right? You've got an
Yeah.
idea, you want to get something
Right.
out there. Mad respect. That is fantastic.
Yeah.
What about yourself? What have you been doing that's new, exciting? What's your checkout? What should we go? Have you been watching more Masters of the
Give me
Air?
like 30 seconds. I'm gonna go get something real quick.
2 or 30. Okay, I guess people in the chat can maybe entertain us. Okay, so Taryn, set up graphics card for desktops and laptops. Okay, so Taryn, Matt's not here, so we can get into trouble. But I feel like I was trying to egg Matt on a little bit here to see if we could convince him to pick up a desktop, to maybe pick up a 4090 and install it and do it. I think what Matt's saying is that it's a little bit easier to create videos on the Mac side because it's all together. But I do have you in mind, and I was kind of thinking that myself. So let's see if we can influence him to buy a desktop and then install it and make a video. That would be amazing. You love OpenWeb UI. Yeah, so I've looked at it, and if we're talking about the same one, yeah, I think OpenWeb UI is similar to LM Studio in terms of the layout, which may be actually the first problem. So Matt, while you're away, Taryn was trying to convince you to pick up a desktop here before you skip ahead.
One issue with your strategy there was that
oh, you could hear me.
I'm listening to this in AirPods,
Taryn,
and so I
he
heard
could hear
this
us the
all
whole
the way
time.
along. Yeah.
Didn't work.
My mic is here, so I couldn't say anything, but yeah.
Oh, he's fooled us.
Yeah.
Taryn's just saying that they'd love to see some stuff around like laptops or things that aren't Mac, because unfortunately, yeah, it is a little bit more difficult to get started when you have to think about drivers and all that stuff out there.
Mm-hmm.
I actually have not seen content out there about like how to maybe slim down Linux or Windows or what have you. But I think if you're just getting started with like graphics card in there, I think it probably is. There's a couple tools that you're missing that Mac could certainly help you with future content. We'll see if we can get them on board here.
No, it's been so long since I still watch a lot of like, whether it's
you don't even have a desktop,
Tech Tips or Hardware Mavens or
Hardware Unboxed,
a bunch of other ETA Prime. I mean, like for people building PCs. For some reason, I still watch some of that, even though I haven't touched a PC in eons.
See, you're a stronger man than I am. My problem is I watch these people and I'm like, yeah, this is fun.
Well, I've occasionally done it, hence I have things like this sitting on my desk that I'd never touch.
Don't listen. The last one here is Terran talking about the 4090 being too expensive. So listen, Terran, I've used a bunch of 3090s. Will be what I've used. There's also, if you can find, I think like 3080 should be pretty cheap used these days, and have 12, not 24 gigabytes of memory, but that might actually help you out. And as Matt said, if you can somehow lock into the Mac side of things, you can often get away with a lot of shared memory. It's going to be slower,
Yeah.
but not much slower in
Not
terms of like
much
the new
slower.
M series. Yeah. And you'll get all of that memory that you're using for your OS
And
that the OS isn't using, which is
the
about 4 gigs.
M3 doesn't really offer a whole lot over the M1. And you
Right.
can get an M1 with 64 gigs for like $1,200
Yeah,
used.
not too much.
Which
Which is cheaper, to be clear, than a
phenomenal.
4090. Let's
Yeah. And you're getting a whole machine. So I'm still my main machine is still an M1 with 64 gigs. So what I ran into the other room for was,
Mhm.
we were talking about storytelling and about,
Yes.
what are, some people are just like natural storytellers.
Yes.
The fact that Casey is able to just spin this story, just starting from the beginning, and knows how to get to the end and knows
Yes.
all the steps.
Yes.
I've made several attempts at like coming up with better stories, and
Okay.
some of my presentations have been after learning more about the Harmon circle. I think I think it's Dan Harmon. But then there's a great short video about creating better stories by the two guys behind South Park, talking into
Oh.
like a film thing.
Awesome. I've been watching a lot of
film
Bill
students.
Hader as well, who is like their joke
And
writer.
their
Really
thing
good.
was, if your story is
Mhm.
they did this, and then they did this, and then they did this, and then they did this, boring.
Oh.
They did this, then they did this, therefore they did that, but they had to do this other thing. Having a lot of buts and therefores
Mhm.
interspersed within the thens makes it a much more, and that's how they've done all of South Park and all the things that they've done.
Yeah, because early on they started
and
on with like 2 storylines. I recall like
yeah,
like even the first season, I feel like there were 2 storylines going on, and that's sort of
yeah.
interesting. Okay.
And so, yeah, there've been a few good things like that around telling stories. And one of the tools that I've purchased that has been helpful, especially when building presentations, or
Mhm.
I've done it with a couple of videos, not very much because it's just more work. But
Right.
if you're on, I feel like for every now and then, if you're on Facebook, you're going to see these ads for this little box set called Storyteller
Oh.
Tactics.
I
Um,
often do go to Facebook, and my ads are not your ads. My ads are for this company called Datadog, and that's all I get on Facebook is
oh,
Datadog
no,
ads.
that's garbage. Garbage,
100%
yeah.
Datadog ads.
So this
Very cool.
Storyteller Tactics is a set of cards. There's actually a stack of them right here, and
Nice.
all the stuff that's in here, you could recreate from a set of books and probably have everything and more within a book that will cost you, $25 versus buying a deck of cards that is $200. But it's this whole
Matt, you
story
got a
building
photocopier?
system.
Sorry.
Well, actually, I think
I do have
they,
more. Sorry, I'm just teasing.
huh?
I
What's
wouldn't
that?
photocopy your cards. I'm just teasing. I'd be
Well,
able to do it,
I
yeah.
think they have the PDFs for these cards
Oh, cool.
on their website. And I think, and I'm not sure if they have them all, but they have a lot of them. And so, I mean, you can get a lot of the content for
I
free.
was joking. Honestly, flashcards
No,
or having something in my
yeah.
hand for me,
Having
is
something in
actually
your
better.
hand is
Yeah.
amazing. So, you kind of go through their little flow chart of,
Mhm.
here's the things that you need to, there we go. Here's
Yeah.
the things that you need to do to go through these steps.
Very cool.
And then each one of those things refers to a card of a different color. And so,
And what are they called? I know you showed that, but I only saw the
it was
first
called
story building blocks?
Storyteller Tactics.
Tactics, sorry. Storyteller tactics. Gotcha.
And it's been a really helpful tool to use. They have you can buy it, and their guarantee, if you don't find it useful, after 365 days, you can return it.
That is
So they have a
very generous.
365-day guarantee.
Wow. On the
Um,
other hand, there's probably some markup there too, right? So like shipping and printing are the primary costs after you come up with the idea. Okay, so I see
Yeah.
what they're doing. They're trying to build
but
goodwill and make you think it's useful.
it's you pick one card from here, another card, whatever card resonates with you for that particular story that you're trying to tell, or that particular video, or that particular presentation that you're doing.
Mhm.
And then you've got these these 3 or 4 cards that you just lay out in front of you as you're building out your session, and it's kind of amazing.
I want
I'm
to try this for the next one I'm writing. This
yeah,
is pretty cool. Okay.
it's really interesting. Like story structure, pride and fall. And so, here's one of the cards. There we go. So that's the overall structure. And then we have on the back, well, what's that look like? And so how's that flow? And it's just it's shockingly good.
You're blowing my
good
mind
these
here because
cards are.
apparently this is a card game. So I pulled it up just to get more info because that's the type of person I am. So you can get the PDF access. And this is from pipdex.com. Never heard of this company
Yep,
before.
that's the one.
Okay, so it's $134.99, so $135 for
Okay.
the PDF. And then what you got was $249, includes the PDF and the cards. The Ultimate Collection, though, and this is kind of what blew my mind, has all of the decks. Now, what may you ask are in the decks? There are brand tactics, innovation tactics, productivity tactics, team tactics, storyteller tactics, workshop tactics, which I thought of you, and then strategy tactics. And I thought
I think I have workshop and storyteller.
Okay, because like workshop sounds right up your alley. Because I suck at building workshops, but I've helped deliver some of yours, and I feel like they're so much better than the ones that I've written.
Yeah,
really cool.
Yeah,
This is awesome.
It's really neat.
Huh. Yeah,
I think I got it.
here.
Like
Very neat.
They do really great sales right at Thanksgiving time, Black Friday-ish time frame,
Right.
and all throughout the year they do all sorts of you can get it a lot cheaper than normally. And then, as I say, 365-day guarantee is
I've signed up,
and it took me probably a good 6 months before I actually used it, and then I used it. It's like, oh, this is actually pretty. I didn't. I mean, something so silly. The fact. The car. Like, well, of course I'm not going to. This is stupid. I'm going to learn so much.
Me how to do my job.
Books that I'm not going to read.
You have hit the nail on the head. So Matt, as a firmware developer, you're saying that no one can write cards that will help you write firmware. Is what I'm hearing here. I hate to as technologists, we feel like we know the best way to do things, and it's often difficult to reach out for help or ask for advice for people who we don't think will help, but they often do. I think is what really drove me nuts about that talk. You hit it right on the head, but you kept them around, you opened them up, and you were pleasantly surprised that just listening helped. I think that's where I'm at. Is like, hey, another opinion can't always hurt, unless it's always wrong. But like even then, worth asking. Terrence said one thing in the chat I just want to hit on a little bit. Like he's saying he doesn't like Mac. Now listen, you don't need to like Apple. I won't say that I like any of these big companies, but if you're trying to get ahead in life and you can swallow that pill for a moment and save almost $3,000, I think it's worth it. But that's just me. I've been in this industry for a while.
For depending on what you're doing, it's pretty hard to beat the price performance ratio of the M1 Mac.
In this case, listen, I understand what Terran's saying, but in this case, I think listen, you either want to save the money or you don't. It's up to you. If your personal politics get in the way,
you want to spend more on getting a PC-based thing. Great, it's definitely gonna be more powerful. But
one thing I will say is as well is when you've used Mac, at least when we're talking about UI stuff, once you started using good UI tools, you can start recognizing the failures in others. Like I've been using QNAP a lot recently, and it's not great. Prior to that, I was using TerraMaster. In terms of NAS vendors, I don't want to paint them all with the same bad brush, but like TerraMaster was much worse. I can't even talk here. I'm like so excited. It was very very not good. Whereas QNAP actually has usable tools, and then you get into
Yeah.
something like the ASUS store might be between them, and then Synology,
Yeah.
of course, I think is the Mac
Synology, I think, is
experience
generally
of
pretty good.
the NAS. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's worth even tearing it if you just try it out and return it after. They're
Yeah.
pretty good, the return policy at the Apple Store as well, which is kind of
Yeah.
cool. If you say you need more memory or decide to go for a Windows box instead and it can't run Windows yet, it's not much they
Yeah.
can say to you.
Yeah. Oh, I just I think I mentioned in a previous session that I got the refurbished iMac for my
Yes.
mother.
Yes.
It was
And
great.
of course, yeah.
It's like perfect.
Look brand new, right?
Although the first day I set it up, I'm like, why is this machine so slow? Everything is taking forever. You'd open up a web browser, open up Gmail, and it was just like, even that was slow, and doing anything local was slow. It's like, what is going on? Take it home, where we have a decent internet connection. Everything's blazingly fast. It's because my mother's on like the worst possible connection.
It is so common, unfortunately. I've done house calls because I used to do help desk stuff where honestly they brought brand new Mac Pro, phenomenal kind of thing, and it turned out like one of these was this really beautiful Vancouver historical building, architect built it, that kind of stuff. Concrete everywhere. And the wireless
Yeah.
just was not working. They had a brand new Mac Pro that they probably spent $10,000 on. So a service call for me is pretty cheap, honestly. Like $150 kind of thing to get me there to check out the $10,000 investment, and it turned out to be the Wi-Fi, unfortunately. And I had to run like a bunch of repeaters and things like that. But yeah, it is the how much we rely on external things to like tell us the performance of the local machine, for sure.
Right.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, listen, Taryn, if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. But all of this to say, like, listen, the politics about companies versus one company is certainly like people will do things to take you off, and not being a champion in public is fine. But at the end of the day, if you need to do a job and that's the tool for the job, sometimes you just have to swallow the hard to swallow pills and get on with the work. I've run Sun Solaris. I've run Oracle databases. There are things that I'm not necessarily happy about, but like, yeah, at the end of the day, it's what you got to do.
Yeah.
That software or Web UI, as someone else mentioned. Was it Open Web UI? Which I think is the basis of what I was complaining about before. Shall we call it? I think we actually got an hour in there. Me waking up.
I feel like there's
other stuff you've purchased?
Any TV? Any? I think I've moved a little bit further along in Masters of Air, and that's doing really well. There was a movie that we saw recently. Oh! We went to see a movie.
Wait, like in person? You left the house?
In person?
I haven't done that
movie?
in a long time. Almost 4 years.
We went to see Dune, the second Dune.
Oh, how is the acting on the Sandworm? Sorry. I've read my apologies.
Yeah, so essentially this is part 2 of the movie that came out,
Yeah, they didn't release a whole movie.
Jade's opening of the door on herself.
Oh,
by herself.
It's time.
It was it's been a long time that I've been
You better have
so
liked it. I just if you did not like this movie,
it's been so
I'm not
long
going to be
since
happy.
I've been so bored in a movie.
Oh no!
Like constantly looking at my watch, like, God,
Denis Villeneuve was boring you?
This is terrible. Oh my God, it was awful. It's just like the previous one. It's just scene for scene, every bit of dialogue is like just pulled out of the first version or whatever, the previous version with who was the guy? McLaughlin, yeah, Twin Peaks guy. So that movie, it's the same script. They just did it with new special effects, but it moved faster in the first version. And they're just moving through the second half of that movie. And it's just, there was nothing new or original. I was disappointed. I really wanted it to be great. And it was not. I was very disappointed.
So one of the things Casey said that I actually do like that he dislikes is like long pondering shots. So like in Dune, having not seen the movie, I can imagine a low level shot of sand and winds like spewing the sand. Oh, it's cool. And then you back out and there's like something to see. And that this might take like 5 minutes. But I love
Sure.
Villeneuve, so I would assume this happens at
I
least 2 or 3 times, right? Is that the
I
problem, or is
love
it like
that,
more the
like
dialogue and
in
stuff?
Lawrence of Arabia,
Yeah, yeah,
that
exactly. That's
you
probably what I
have
had in my head.
that, and it's
Yeah, yeah,
amazing.
yeah. Those
No, they
long
didn't do
panning
that.
shots. Yeah.
No,
Oh,
no.
he didn't do it. Maybe we need the editor's cut or something. That's awful. And how long is it? Is it 3 hours?
It was a long. It
Oh,
was.
wow.
It was at least. It was at least $60 in babysitting time.
Oh, yeah. The opportunity cost of a movie is really high. Like I don't think people understand it.
You got to pay for the movie tickets and then the babysitter at 20 or $25 an hour or whatever. And oh my god.
It's awful. AI by AI or AI by Al asked, or Al by AI. I'm confused with these characters. Is asking about CUDA and Mac, and I'd say like, listen, if you want to go all the way back to High Sierra, no problem. Anything newer than that, you're not going to have a good time with NVIDIA and Macintosh.
Oh yeah.
Just,
No.
it's just straight up.
Yeah.
Nope. Unless you're talking about CUDA for ATI somehow, like, no, I would avoid it at all cost.
Yeah.
That's use your Mac to drive a CUDA system elsewhere. That would be what
Yeah,
I do,
unfortunately,
what I would
Mac
recommend to you.
Mac with Intel and NVIDIA cards, it's not a great story with Olama.
No. And in fact, because I do run a High Sierra system, so I'm saying this out of a place of love. I've got a 1080 and a High Sierra box that's running. It is difficult to get a browser that works. I think we mentioned this the other day. You have to use Firefox, which again, I love them. I would pay them if I could. I'm so happy about it. Homebrew is very difficult to get to work, even in the Git version, because a lot of the build tools are missing. As a result, getting Olama to work is not impossible, but I haven't had any luck lately. It's not easy because the underpinning OS is so ancient at this point in time. But listen, for gaming and stuff like that, CUDA and like running what was I running back in the day? Cinebench R15, I think, back in the day to do some 3D stuff. Totally cool, but unfortunately they run out of goodwill and love, I guess, for the NVIDIA folks in the Apple camp, and it not great these days.
Wow.
But again, big companies, so like don't love big companies, just love the tech. All right. This is what we get for post-nap me. I apologize. Hopefully that was good. Sorry, folks. I really need some lay down time, but hopefully I was recharged when I got back up.
I took a nap earlier today, so that's good.
Love it.
Yep. Shall we find that end stream button?
Let's do it. Thank you again so much for the comments
Thank
in
you.
the chat. It makes this thing
so
much better.
There's still 25 copies of your mother logged in. It's amazing.
She really likes you. It must be the beer.
Yeah. Incredible. All right.